everyone. We are going to introduce ourselves to coordinate planes. And in this video, we are going to be talking about the x-axis, the y-axis, and how we number those. So we're going to start by just drawing a very basic coordinate plane here. And they usually look like crosses. So here we have one line going up and down, and we'll have another line going across, like that. You'll probably also see little arrows going on each of the ends of the lines, and that basically just means that these lines could go on forever and ever and ever. So our x-axis is this line going across. And we can highlight that. And our y-axis is the line that goes up and down. And we can highlight that. So that is a very basic coordinate plane. Okay, so for this portion of the video, I zoomed out a little bit, or zoomed in a little bit to make these boxes a little bigger. And we are going to go over numbering a coordinate plane. So let's start with the x-axis. That is this across line. And when we are numbering this line, we are going to think about this like when we went over number lines before. In the very middle of a coordinate plane, we have this section where the lines cross right here. And there is a special name for that spot. We're going to go over it in another later video. But that is going to be our 0. And then we're going to start at 0 and we're going to number out. So this is going to be 1, this is going to be 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And just like we said before, those arrows on the end basically mean that this line could go on forever. So if I extended the line out, I would have 6, 7, 8, and so on. Now I'm going to go back to the middle and I'm going to number out on the other side, and these are going to be our negative numbers. And notice that as I keep going further away from 0, my numbers are getting more and more negative. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing with the y-axis. This is going to be very similar to what we talked about with vertical number lines. So we'll start in the middle and we're going to work our way up. So above the 0, we have these lines, and it's going to start with 1, 2, 3, and these are our positive numbers. And then below 0 is where we're going to find our negative numbers. And just like we did before, the farther away we get from the middle, the more negative our numbers are going to get. So we start with -1, -2, -3, and -4. And that middle section, we don't label it with 0, because we are just supposed to know that that is where 0 is, right there in the center, where that pink dot is. Here we have another coordinate plane, and these boxes are way smaller. We're going to start by labeling our axes. This is our x-axis here, and our y-axis going up and down. And sometimes you might notice that when you're using graph paper, if you were to try to label these one box at a time, these lines are very close together. And if I were to try to number each of these, things start to get very squished very soon. And it can still work. But you might notice that when you get over here, all of these numbers are trying to be in the same place. So what do we do when this happens? One thing that we can do is we can decide to only label maybe every 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to write 5 right there. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'll label that with 10. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And I can do that for each of the lines. So on the negative side of the x-axis, I'll do the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is negative 5 now. 7, 8, 9, 10. This is going to be negative 10. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. This is negative 15. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And I ran out of space, but I could put negative 20 right there. Sometimes it's helpful to make that line a little bigger so it stands out a little more. So you definitely know which line that number is supposed to go to. Because as we can see, things are a little squishy. And it can be kind of hard to tell which line the number goes to, which is why we're not numbering every single one. Okay, let's do the same thing with the y-axis. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this time I'm going to make that line bigger right away. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, so that's my positive side, and I'm going to do the negative side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Make that bigger. Negative 5. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, so for this coordinate plane, we can tell that each of these little tick marks is 1, but we didn't label every single one because it would just make everything too messy, and this works just as well. Here we have another coordinate plane. We'll label the x-axis, that's our side-to-side line, and our y-axis, which is the up and down line. I always label my two axes because it makes it so I don't forget which one is which. Now, what happens if you have graph paper where the lines are, or the boxes are really big, but the numbers you're trying to graph are also pretty big? What you can do is, instead of making each box worth 1, you can make it worth a bigger number. So let me show you what I mean by that. I am trying to graph a number that goes up to 30. One of my numbers is up to 30. So I might draw a line for each of these boxes, but instead of going by ones like this, like what I've been doing, I'm going to go by tens. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. That is an option. You could also go by 5s if you felt like you needed more space, or if you wanted to use your space a little better. So that would look like this: 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. One of the things that we have to practice when we're doing graphing is figuring out the best way to number based on the numbers that you are trying to graph. So here I'm just labeling each of my axes based on how I decided to graph. And you can see things are getting a little squishy. So at this point, you might decide to number it a little differently. Whatever works for you is the best way to go. So that is another example of numbering for a coordinate plane.